If you've been watching my previous video essays, you know how dominant the trap meta was. During this time, every trap operator had record-breaking pick rates, and to this day they are considered to be some of the most broken operators to ever come into Siege. Examples like Ela on launch come to mind. And well, today we're going to be talking about one of the operators that helped to catapult the trap meta into one of the most annoying metas to play in. So strap in and follow me as I tell the story of an overpowered trap operator that broke the game on their release. For the sake of today's video, we need to go back to Year 2 Season 3, also known as Operation Blood Orchid. I have fond memories of this operation. It brought us the new map Theme Park, some decent balancing changes, and 3 game-changing operators, those being Ying, Ela, and Legion. Ying brought her own unique flashbangs to the game that could help your team get a plant down and take potential map control. As for Ela, most of you likely thought this is who the video was going to be about. Her SMG on release was beyond busted. It had an LMG level magazine size with a stupid high fire rate. On top of her SMG being one of the most overpowered guns to ever come into the game, her gadget was just as busted. They disoriented attackers, slowed their movement, and they stopped them from sprinting. There wasn't any hole in her loadout, and the same can be said about the operator I'm covering today, Legion. Legion released with his great T5 SMG, which had easy to control recoil, good damage, and a solid fire rate overall. On top of his great SMG, his gadget released in a very strong state. They were invisible as they are today, but they dealt a large amount of damage, removed your ability to sprint, and they were visible to Legion through walls across the map. If you got your hands on Legion back in Blood Orchid, you know how busted this was, and the strength wasn't in their damage, it was in their information capabilities. Since Legion could see his traps through walls, he could make callouts on where the attackers were coming from at all times, while not having to access any cameras. This was absolutely massive for the defense. It allowed your entire team to stay updated about where the attackers were coming from. This, along with Ela being extremely strong, caused the infamous trap meta to be born. Things would stay this way for quite some time, especially for Legion, since he was outshined by Ela. However, Ubisoft would give him a slight nerf in the season following his release, that being Operation White Noise. Operation White Noise was a mixed bag compared to the other operations of that time period. We got Tower, which is widely considered to be the worst map in the game, but we also got some great balancing changes, and the operators that they released in this season were amazing and fun to play. Those operators being Vigil, Dokkaebi, and Zofia. Vigil was a roamer with a good gun that brought a gadget that counters one of the attacker's strongest tools, droning. Dokkaebi was a support operator that had the capability to call all defenders with a press of a button, which was unheard of at the time, and she could also hack their cameras, which was a game changer. Then finally, Zofia was a clear competitor to Ashe. Her launcher had similar functionality, but was better since it came with 2 stuns, and she had a competitive gun that could rival Ashe's R4C. However, what is important for today's video is the balancing changes. For our boy Legion, Ubisoft decided to nerf his refill timer by 5 seconds. This nerf was meant to make Legion have to wait longer to get the most out of his gadget, but it didn't fix any of the main issues people had with his goo mines, and it didn't make them any less annoying to go against. Since Ubisoft was distracted by Ela, Legion wouldn't get any further changes until Operation Bastion. Operation Bastion was a solid operation that brought us game-changing operators. We saw the introduction of the map Fortress, which wasn't great, but we got Nomad and Kaid, who are both operators that have shaped the way we play the game today, with Kaid being meta right now more than ever. But obviously we are here for the Legion nerf, which came in the form of nerfing his gun damage. This was Ubisoft basically changing some numbers in hopes that it would solve Legion's underlying issues, but obviously that attempt failed. And the minor nerf to his damage did nothing to his pick rate, with him still being in the top 3 most picked operators after the nerf. His win rate was stupidly high alongside it. After all this time, it was pretty obvious drastic changes were needed to balance Legion's stupidly overpowered traps that were dominating the meta. However, we were on the precipice of those changes, with Ubisoft going back to the drawing board and changing Legion as we know it in Year 5 Season 1, also known as Operation Void Edge. Operation Void Edge is one of the best operations in Siege's history. It brought us 2 of the most fun operators ever released, those being Oryx, who could jump up hatches and run through walls, and Diana, who had an extremely good gun and infinite drones as her gadget. Also, the Oregon rework that was introduced is considered by most of the community to be the best map in the game. On top of all this, the balancing changes were amazing. They reworked Twitch's drones to make them less overpowered, they reworked barricade debris to fix its client-sided issues, and they reworked Legion's goos, which is what we are here for today. For this rework of sorts, they removed Legion's ability to see his goos through walls and made their visible distance only 8 meters. They removed the initial damage an attacker would take when stepping on them, they increased their damage per tick to 6 from 4, and they made down players unaffected by his goos. Obviously, this was a major nerf to Legion, and it's likely one of the most extreme nerfs Ubisoft has ever done in a single patch. His pick and win rate immediately dropped significantly below where they used to be, and with Legion being the last glimmer of the trap meta left, his nerf marked the death of one of Siege's longest lasting and infamous metas. However, one small buff that Ubisoft gave him would manage to flip the script entirely, and he would once again rise to the top of the meta, albeit for different reasons. This small buff would come in Operation Shadow Legacy. If you guys have been watching my videos for a while, you know how much I love Shadow Legacy. This was the perfect season. It brought us the map rework to Chalet, which mixed up the map entirely and made it one of the best maps in the ranked pool. We got Zero, who brought an interesting gadget to the table and a new gun, which was rare at the time. Then on top of the new content, we got a new secondary gadget, the Hard Breach Charge, and a ton of new sight options for our guns, which has shaped the way we play Siege forever. The new sights that they added are what affected Legion. With the addition of the 1.5, 2 times, and 3 times, a ton of operators got new sights. Legion was one of those operators. Ubisoft decided to give him the 1.5, which is considered to be the best sight in the game by most people. This change made his mediocre T5 into one of the best guns in the game. He immediately saw over a 10% increase to his pick rate, and he became more of an auto pick like he was before. It was like deja vu all over again if you were an attacker. You were constantly going up against Legion. However, to Ubisoft's credit, they realized this was going to be a problem, and they removed his 1.5 just one season after it was added. But part of me wonders what Legion would be like today if he still had his 1.5, especially now that Oryx is getting his removed for the same reasons. The only reason Oryx was meta in the first place was for the 1.5. If Legion had it today, I have a feeling he would be one of the most picked operators by far. Now, after the removal of his 1.5, his pick rate wouldn't see any huge changes. But as the seasons went on and newer operators released, Legion slowly fell out of the meta, being outshined by other operators. His pick rate today being only 15%, the lowest it has ever been. Is this because his guns don't hold up, or is it because his gadget isn't good enough to compete? I think it's a mixture of both. Legion's biggest competitors, Kapkan and Frost, have been getting way more love over the past couple of years. Kapkan brings way better traps that actually deal damage, a nitro cell, and a 1.5, whereas Frost brings a better gun, also with a 1.5, and her gadget is just way more effective if you use it properly. It also doesn't help that the meta Legion was able to dominate so easily is now completely dead. The trap meta now is just a thing of the past. It's more important now for the defenders to bring hard utility that can waste the attacker's time and get rid of some of their important utility. And unfortunately for Legion, he just doesn't bring that to the table. Now, does Legion have a chance of becoming meta again? Of course. His placement on the pick rate chart isn't terrible, and with some slight buffs, he could become a really good operator. But the bigger question that I ask is, will that ever happen? Ubisoft has a track record of nerfing OP operators and letting them sit to rot as underwhelming for years onwards. I hope Ubisoft doesn't do that to my boy Legion, but we'll have to see what the future has to hold. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you don't miss the next upload. If you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now where I talk about a defender who managed to stay overpowered for 4 whole years, which is a rarity these days. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.